So we're here to talk innovation in retail media. Let's dive straight in. Why is retail media growing so fast? Why has it been so successful in grabbing the attention of marketers? Do you want to introduce yourself and then tell us your thoughts?
Yeah, how's it going? My name is Edwin Wong, and I run measurement science over at Uber Advertising. I think I'm seeing that when you look at retail media, I look at the four A's. It's really about access, attention, activation, and accountability. And when we talk about why it's such an enticing sort of platform, marketers really look at what we do at Uber Advertising, really around our moat around understanding the user from a first-party perspective. We have a high intent signal, and what's interesting is that coming into the space, we're really looking at closed-loop measurement, but more importantly, we're starting to see that our experience, which is all around the go and the get, is about the human journey that delivers serendipitously. And so it's been a really great growth path for us, and we're seeing that marketers are really being attuned to it.
And that's your core pitch to advertisers, right? That's how you're positioning the Uber advertising offer.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely seeing that in the space. And, I think over the last little while, being in the space and studying research, we're seeing that even when you look at end consumers specifically, we're moving away from consumptive media. There are fundamental shifts that are happening on the knowledge gathering space because of the coming wave of AI, and the consumer themselves is starting to reach back in and say, I want to be a part of life. And the platforms that ultimately deliver that are the platforms that are ultimately going to win.
Okay, cool. Julian, why is it growing so fast? What's your pitch to advertisers?
Hi, guys. Julian Mintz. I lead sales for Albertsons Media Collective. At the risk of oversimplifying, if you zoom out, marketers have been looking for three things forever. They want a verified person that they know is in market. They want to influence that person, and they want to measure whether that influence led to a sale. Retail media cracks that code, and it does so in a way that doesn't sacrifice all the other things they care about, like storytelling, for instance. So we, at Albertsons Media Collective, our whole thing is let's help brands connect with consumers in moments that matter. With retail media, you can make all of those moments matter, whether it's something happening on our site, whether it's connected TV. Today we announced our digital display network, so big, impactful digital screens in the store. Now we're making that moment in the store a moment that matters, where we can use data, closed-loop measurement to actually make that moment meaningful for marketers as well.
Super interesting. Tell us your pitch. Why is it growing so fast? Why does it work with advertisers?
Yeah, so Austin Leonard from Epsilon, SVP of Retail Media. It's been growing fast because retailers have audiences that brands covet. So it's about measurement, but as more retailers have realized that they have a community, they have an audience that can help drive more sales, that's where we've seen a lot of the scale from retail media grow. And obviously, as the tech and the identity and the tools have gotten better, it's allowed more retailers to participate in retail media and allowed more brands to figure out which retailers they want to lean in on. So that's a big part of the growth.
Okay, Austin, we're here to talk innovation. You mentioned the tech. Super briefly, without getting too techy, what are the main building blocks of a retail media solution? What are the parts around which you can innovate?
Yeah, so absolutely the most important part is that the retailer has their audience. They have their group of customers that the brands want to talk to. The first thing you need to do is be able to have a way to identify them. So identity is the backbone. How do you take your CRM? How do you activate it? That's a core part of how do you take your first-party data. The activation part then becomes really important because you need to figure out what assets do you have on-site, off-site, now in store. So you've got some great pieces there. And then obviously, how do you connect those all together so that you can measure it? And that's where a lot of those core functionality comes into play across all those touch points.
Okay, Julian, does that reflect your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the last part of that, you'll hear the word interoperability a lot, but building data functions that make it easy to pass data from one place to another in a really privacy-safe way. So clean rooms are obviously really popular right now. If retail media is going to successfully influence all the different marketing channels, that's going to need to be in place as well.
And I think also the variety and plethora of really interesting ad formats, search, native, rich media. We launched Journey TV in New York, and so I absolutely agree with Julian. I think that you have to have that, and most importantly, the measurement piece, because of our, again, high intent purchase that actually happens right within our walls, we're able to really talk to that in a much more profound way.
And that, to me, that's one of the most exciting things. Just the sheer number of companies participating in the space is driving a huge wave of innovation. Everyone's doing something slightly different. So we're getting a lot of new, interesting things. Brief digression, though, before we go on. How does all this benefit consumers? Are consumers really benefiting from the growth of retail media?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think they definitely are. Consumers, say what you want about advertising, when it's relevant, it's real and they like it. So when retail media is done right and when it's relevant, it basically becomes a personal shopper that's whispering in your ear, hey, you know that pasta that you buy every week? It's now on sale today. You should go buy it again. And there's a way to make it joyous as well. I think there's a term out there that retail media is where creative goes to die. It doesn't have to be that way, right? We can make this really fun, good creative, bring in influencers and storytellers, and make it a positive experience altogether.
Yeah, I would also say that it's permissive versus interruptive. One thing that we talk about internally is this concept of convenience made accessible in a real way. If I'm actually in a ride and I'm coming home from the airport and I forgot that I needed to also have groceries, I can have them delivered right to the space. I absolutely agree with that perspective. And if you think about the things that we've been talking about as marketers for the last 2 to 5 years, we think through platforms that are more consumptive in nature.
Right.
And even when we look at how we are behaving as consumers, that lean back experience, yes, incredibly important. We're fundamentally shifting the way we engage with media, with marketing, so that it's not even leaning in, it's actually being in. And we definitely see that at Uber Advertising, that when you think about that being in, being a part of that moment, what are we fulfilling between the go and the get? That is where the innovation happens. That's why we think this is a really great point in where we're at.
And oddly, just in the last couple of days, I've seen some great examples about Uber advertising for marketeers arriving here in Cannes.
That's right.
Yeah, I think the other thing to call out is, when I was in programmatic before retail media was called retail media, I used to tell people, I would ask, hey, what do you do? Well, I help keep the internet free. Well,
Right.
now we, as retail media, the entire industry, we help keep shipping and delivery free. So if you think about how many people actually bought groceries online before 2020, it was a tiny percentage, and it was really hard. With a lot of what retail media has done, a lot of those dollars, the retailers and the Ubers of the world are really investing back in that customer experience, which helps save time, save money, and obviously help personalize the journey and make it even better.
Okay, Austin, let's stick with you. Innovation. Where are you seeing innovation in the retail media category? You know, what really big developments are exciting you from a new stuff point of view?
Yeah, I would say it's all about AI. We're obliged to say that multiple times in the panel.
Yep.
And that's because it is allowing us to actually move a lot faster, whether it's creating new ways to build audiences, creating better ways to measure. We also have a lot going on in the influencer space. We think there's a ton of innovation that's happening there. Obviously, with Publicis acquiring Influential, it's a great partner of Epsilon's. And how do we help bring that influencer space into retail media? Allows the retailers to help build their community. So we see a lot, obviously, AI, measurement, and of course, the influencers.
The AI side is particularly exciting because it can help move us towards predictive relevance, right? Retail media is all about relevance right now. But predictive relevance is a whole new ballgame. So say you're trying to sell allergy medication in the spring. We're able to train AI models that can say, all right, these zip codes right now are currently spiking with pollen levels. And we know people engage online in these zip codes. And we know SKU velocity is higher in these zip codes. We can bring in search data, all these different signals, and then serve an ad to someone to buy that medication before they even get the sniffles. That's truly driving value in the space.
How deep do you think we can go with those kind of predictive analytics? I mean, I would love a tool that could remind me it was my mother's birthday and then actually recommend 5 things she might like based on my last 10 years of purchases.
They have
Are
that.
those sorts of things around the corner?
They have that. Yeah, that
We have
exists.
that. Okay. My mum is eternally grateful, I promise you.
I think moving away from AI, there's also looking at the human element, as I was talking about consumers wanting to be part of moments. One thing that we are seeing is the launch of our creative studios, which we launched about a week and a half ago. And when you think through some of the examples, we worked with Lumiere, and anyone who was stuck in their homes during the pandemic remembered F1 growing with great veracity. And so we worked with them to connect around the event in Miami where they tricked out Uber Blacks down to the seatbelt, which was amazing, and gave riders, when they were going back to their luxury hotels, just some really great purchases or great free things so that they can launch their night cream. And Diageo is another great example where they wanted to get around the holidays in a very rich way. And not only could I buy some Diageo products to spice up my holiday, but I can order a caroler or a Christmas tree. These are all things that really get down to where the consumer is actually asking for our platforms. I love what Julian said. It doesn't have to be boring. It could actually be quite nice and incremental and additive.
Yeah, I think one other interesting thing that we're seeing is the connectivity between the physical and the digital worlds when it comes to shopping. So take recipes, for instance. Right now, you can go on our website and find a bunch of recipes, and then you can shop those recipes. With these digital screens in the store, now that exact experience is being brought into that point of decisioning. I think you're going to see a lot more around connecting the physical and the digital shelf going forward.
That's interesting. What about cross-retailer innovation? I mean, identity is the key to a lot of this. I'm really interested to know whether you can build innovations across multiple retail networks using identity as a common layer.
Yeah, I believe that everyone, all the brands, that's what they're asking for. It's a little bit of the holy grail. It's a little bit of, hopefully it exists.
They don't like working with 250 retail media networks?
They would just like to have all their media in the same place where they can report against it and measure it against each other, which is, in the early days, retail media was heresy. So it was scary. But they obviously want to be able to connect the dots together so they can actually continue to drive better performance, continue to make it more efficient. And that is obviously what retail media can drive. That doesn't mean that the retailers have to collaborate. Doesn't mean that retailers have to put their first-party data out there in the world and lose control of it. There's a lot of great technology that's advancing there. It's one of the things that AI can help with is being able to take that volume of data and be able to process it faster so that you can actually connect the dots. And everything we're doing within the connected media ecosystem allows our brands to really actually lean more into retail media and build on the power of their audiences.
So why is, Julian, identity, why is identity so important in the retail media space? Obviously, you have your own customer set, your own CRM systems and so on. Are you looking to everyone's talking interoperability, of course. Are you looking to build bridges across the wider marketplace using common identity spines?
Yeah, look, at the risk of oversimplifying, identity is not all that matters in retail media, but it's the first thing that matters, and without it, there's nothing. It's what enables us to target. It's what enables us to control frequency. It's what enables us to measure. Absolutely, we're looking for ways to federate that more, to connect the on-site and the off-site world. Again, at the risk of oversimplifying, it's everything.
And I think part of that is not everyone's lucky enough to have all logged in, leaned in users like Uber.
Right.
And having that digital first experience where they're all, first party data. So when you have 95% or 85% of your sales happening physical, that's just a different set of data that you can work with.
Are you linking up with other retailers, media offerings, platforms all across the market? Being
about 3.5 weeks in, I probably can't answer that question just yet. But I think one of the things that I can say is that when you take a look at the actual data signal, one thing that is so important about that identity is for each of us, that data signal is different because of the experience that we're bringing back to the user.
Right.
And one way that we're thinking about AI is we're a tech company that has been leveraging ML and AI with logistical precision, pairing drivers to riders, and with that same sort of precision, I think we're doing that on the advertising side. And what's even more important is we're getting away from just delivering on understanding who and thinking about the what. And so each of us here, we are constantly traveling for business. We're constantly going to certain places. We're constantly eating Thai food, or maybe not. And so understanding each of those signals, I think, actually gets to intent acceleration. And that's exactly what we think that logged in first-party persistent data across the go and the get actually gives us.
So sticking with you, Edwin, for a moment, scale. How important is scale when it comes to driving and delivering innovation? I'm guessing it's hugely important.
Yeah, I think so. I think for us, it's not just volume, but the variety of the actual data set that is so important. We just kind of mentioned some of the things that I was talking about. with 170 million active users monthly, 3 billion rides, a really growing restaurant and grocery delivery business, you start to see that scale and merchants coming in to be a part of that ecosystem. And so, it's not just the scale, which I think we do have globally. It is, what does that scale with the variety of data actually give us when it comes to predictive analytics and really talking about our networks?
Julian,
Yeah,
how
I think-
important is scale?
Yeah, scale definitely matters. If you're trying to train models and algorithms, the more data you feed into it, the better they're going to work. Breadth and depth of data is also really important. It's something we try to lean into a lot. It's very helpful to know when someone's bought something, but it's also helpful to know if that product is available on the shelf.
Right.
So for instance, how do you change your creative if the store is out of eggs right now? So yeah, scale very important, but breadth and depth of data also extremely important as well.
Okay, Austin, it's mandatory on every retail media panel to ask about fragmentation and consolidation. There's 80 plus big retail media networks operating in the US. Is that a barrier as much as a driver of innovation? I mean, innovations need to scale. They ideally become consistently available across multiple networks. Do you think we need to see some sort of retail media super aggregators or consolidation in the space to really support these innovations and help them scale out?
No, I don't think there needs to be a super aggregator. So first and foremost, I'll be the first to say that not every retailer or commerce player deserves to have their own media network. But if you have an audience and you have people that want to advertise to that audience, you should be able to provide them tools that can help them do that. I don't think that the fragmentation is necessarily a bad thing. I think that what is happening is that competition is actually driving the innovation. And I think that each retailer needs to figure out what is their unique story. It's not always going to be a scale story. It's not always going to be an e-commerce story. And as they figure out what that unique story is, they can go to market. Now, some of them should partner up, absolutely. I think there's going to be more of that. I think there's definitely some regional players that'll find a way to team up. But I don't think you need a super aggregator in order to continue the rate of growth. I think standardization helps, obviously, and I think the ability to know who your customer is as an ad network, and when you're talking to which media buyer and which customers, and then also partnering with your suppliers is a big part of that. And building those tools out so they can do that is your core job as a retail media network or a commerce media network.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the standardization point. Super aggregator is nice to talk about. It's probably not that realistic, short of big actual M&A. But standardization's key. If we're going to work backward from retail media being good for the consumer, then we want retail media networks to be healthy because it's helping consumers. Retail media networks are not going to thrive unless we standardize. There's too many of them. It's too overwhelming for the buyers.
Right.
We've, at Albertsons, leaned into standardization for a couple of years now with the IAB, but it's absolutely critical, whether it's across measurement frameworks or identity. I think that's the more realistic path, and frankly, we feel strongly that it needs to happen.
And just briefly, are those the main areas where you see opportunities for standardization, measurement and identity?
Yeah, and creative.
And
creative formats could really help as well. I mean, creative is, in my opinion, the next frontier of innovation in the space. So there's going to be a lot of non-standardization, but there's some easy stuff that we can all standardize, and that would really help.
Edwin?
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Okay, good. Nice to know. Final question then, which I always love to end with. Fast forward. Does everyone know what a TARDIS is?
What?
Do you know what a TARDIS is?
I do not.
Do tell.
TARDIS. Everyone in the audience know what a TARDIS is? There you go. The TARDIS is Doctor Who's time-traveling device. So if you grew up in the UK and you're of a certain
Thanks
age...
for the heads up on that
yeah,
one.
I believe it's time and related dimensions in space for the really geeky out there. So imagine you have this time-traveling device and you stepped into it. It looks like a police box, and you fast-forwarded to 2030, and we stepped out and we looked at retail media category. What is going to look most different? Why don't you kick us off, Julian, and then we'll go that way and then that way.
I think this is maybe not the most exciting answer, but I think we're going to see fluidity between physical and digital in a way much bigger than just hey, we can do shoppability online right now, or, oh, we put a digital screen in the store. I think we're going to see those two experiences work in concert in a much deeper way.
I prefer to get in the DeLorean if we're going to do some time travel. I don't know what this Doctor Who is going to do for us here. So
I think that's a great head-to-head, actually. I think, though, the DeLorean only goes backwards.
No, it can go wherever you program it to.
Oh, no, you're right. Sorry, you can go forwards as well. You're totally right.
Anyway, sorry.
I'm forgetting the sequence.
I have bought us enough time to figure out our answer on innovation in 5 years. I mean, I think part of it is that if you can figure out what the shopping experience is going to be in 5 years, then you should bet all on that. With agentic and AI and all these platforms converging, I do think the shopping experience will be totally different. I think retail media will continue to play a critical role in how shopping evolves. And I think that between ad format standardization, like if you go back 10 years to where programmatic was, you have some interesting parallels of how that industry got to where it's going, and some great lessons too. So I would encourage you to look through that.
Okay, Edwin, a final word. It's 2030.
I think the word I would use is serendipity. I love exactly what Julian said about the digital and physical space. How are we going to leverage ML, AI to really create that sort of serendipity so that when you're in that moment, you're actually with the consumer, convenience adjacent, so that you're on their path?
Awesome. That brings the Retail Media Innovation panel to a close. Gents, thank you so much.
Thanks, John.